Money as emotional regulation. A woman sits in her car in a parking lot. She just left work. It was a hard day. Not the kind of hard where something went wrong. The kind of hard where nothing felt right. Small frustrations. A tone from a coworker. A meeting that went nowhere. The feeling of being invisible for 8 hours straight. She picks up her phone, opens an app, scrolls through clothes she doesn't need, adds a jacket to her cart, then a pair of shoes, then a bag. She stares at the total, feels something shift inside her chest. Not excitement, something quieter, something closer to relief. She hits buy. On the drive home, she feels lighter. Not happy, but less heavy. The day doesn't sting as much. The jacket and the shoes don't matter. She might return them. She's done that before. What mattered was the moment she pressed the button. That was the moment her body calmed down. Now think about something different. A man checks his savings account every morning. He has more than enough, but he checks it anyway. He watches the number. If it went up, even by a little, he feels steady. If it dipped, maybe a bill came through, something tightens in his stomach. He doesn't spend, he doesn't like to. Not because he can't afford to, because spending makes him feel exposed, like something is being taken from him, like he's less safe than he was a minute ago. He tells people he's careful with money. That's not what's happening. What's happening is that the number in his account is doing the same thing the woman's shopping cart is doing. It's holding his feelings in place. One more. A father controls the money in his household. He earns most of it. His wife works part-time. When she wants to buy something, but even groceries, she runs it by him. Not because he told her to. He never said, "Ask me before you spend anything." But something in how he responds when she doesn't, a sigh, a question, a look at the receipt, taught her to check first. She doesn't think of this as control. She thinks of it as keeping the peace. He doesn't think of it as control either. He thinks of it as being responsible. But here's what's actually happening. Every time she asks, her world gets a little smaller. And every time he answers, his gets a little bigger. Not because of the money, because of what the money is doing underneath the money. That's what this is about. The dynamic, money as emotional regulation. Most people think of money as a tool. You earn it, you spend it, you save it, it pays for things, it solves problems, it builds a life. That's true, but it's not the whole picture. For most people, money is also doing something else. Something they don't talk about. Sometimes something they don't even notice. Money is regulating how they feel. When a person is anxious, money can make the anxiety go away, either by spending it or by seeing that it's still there. When a person is sad, buying something can create a brief feeling of control. When a person is afraid, holding on to money can feel like holding on to safety. When a person feels powerless, controlling someone else's access to money can make them feel strong again. This is not about greed. It's not about materialism. It's not about being irresponsible or being cheap. It's about the fact that money has become one of the main ways people manage emotions they don't have other tools for. And when money starts doing that job, when it becomes the thing that calms you down, props you up, or keeps your fear at bay, it stops being just money. It becomes a nervous system tool. And everything around it, how you talk about it, how you fight about it, how you avoid talking about it, starts to reflect that. How the dynamic forms. This doesn't start with a decision. Nobody sits down and says, I'm going to use money to handle my feelings. It starts with experience, usually early experience. A kid grows up in a house where money is tight, not dangerously tight, but tight enough that the mood in the house changes around bills. The parents get quiet, or they get loud. The kid doesn't understand the details, but the kid understands the feeling. When money is short, people are scared. When money comes in, people relax. That kid learns something they'll carry for decades. Money is what makes people okay. Not love, not connection, not honesty, money. Another kid grows up in a house where money is used as a reward. Good grades, you get something. Good behavior, you get something. That kid learns something different. Money is how people show you that you matter. If you get it, you're valued. If you don't, something is wrong with you. Another kid grows up watching a parent spend whenever they're upset. A fight with a spouse, a bad week at work, and then bags come through the door. New things. The mood lifts. Nobody talks about what happened, but the house feels better. That kid learns. Spending fixes feelings. You don't need to talk, you need to buy. None of these lessons are spoken out loud. They don't need to be. Kids don't learn emotional patterns through lectures. They learn them through atmosphere, through what happens after the tension, through what makes the adults calm down. By the time these kids are adults, money has been wired into their emotional regulation system, not as a concept, as a reflex. And here's the thing about reflexes. They don't announce themselves. They just run. How it changes communication. This is where it gets complicated because once money is doing emotional work, every conversation about money becomes an emotional conversation, even when it doesn't look like one. The couple who can't talk about the budget, they sit down to go over finances. One person wants to save more, the other wants to spend more freely. On the surface, it looks like a disagreement about numbers, but underneath, two completely different emotional systems are clashing. The saver feels safe when the number grows. Every dollar spent feels like a crack in the wall between them and disaster. They're not being controlling. They're managing fear. But they can't say that. They say things like, we need to be more careful and we can't keep doing this. The spender feels alive when they buy things, not reckless, alive. The purchase breaks the flatness of the day. It gives them a sense of choice, a sense of agency. They're not being irresponsible. They're managing a feeling of emptiness or powerlessness. But they can't say that either. They say things like, we deserve to enjoy our money, and you never want to do anything. So the conversation goes in circles, because neither person is talking about what's actually happening. They're each defending the emotional system that money runs for them. And every time the other person pushes back, it doesn't feel like a budget discussion. It feels like a threat. That's why money fights are so intense. They're not about money, they're about safety, identity, and control, dressed up as line items. The employee who won't ask for a raise. She's been at her job for 3 years. She does excellent work. She knows she's underpaid. Her friends tell her to ask. She agrees, she plans to, but she doesn't. Not because she's afraid of the conversation, because of what the conversation means to her emotionally. Asking for more money means saying, I deserve more. And somewhere deep in her system, that statement doesn't feel true. Not because she lacks evidence, because the feeling of deserving has never been stable for her. Money, for her, is tied to worth. Not in a theory, in her body. So asking for a raise isn't a negotiation, it's an exposure. It's putting her sense of self on the table and waiting for someone to confirm or deny it. So she waits, she hints, she works harder, hoping someone will notice without her having to say it. And when the raise doesn't come, she doesn't get angry. She gets quiet. Because the silence confirms what her system already believed. She wasn't enough. The friend who always picks up the check. He insists on paying every time. He waves off offers to split. He says things like, "Don't worry about it, and I've got this." People think he's generous, and he is. But the generosity is doing something for him that nobody sees. When he pays, he feels needed. He feels important. He feels like he has a role. Without that role, he's not sure where he fits. The money isn't buying dinner. It's buying belonging. And if someone insists on paying instead, really insists, something shifts in him. Not gratitude, discomfort. Because the thing that made him feel secure just got taken away. How people can misread what's happening. This is where most of the damage occurs, not in the behavior itself, in how other people interpret it. The saver gets called controlling. And sometimes they are, but often what looks like control is fear wearing a mask. The person gripping the money isn't trying to dominate anyone. They're trying to keep the ground from shifting. They learned somewhere that safety lives in that number. And when someone threatens the number, the fear activates. It comes out as rules, as monitoring, as tension around purchases. But the root isn't power. The root is terror. The problem is, to the person on the other side, it feels exactly like control. And that's real too, because the effect is the same. When someone else decides what you can and can't spend, your world shrinks. Your autonomy fades. It doesn't matter why they're doing it. What matters is what it does to you. So you have two people, both telling the truth. One says, "I'm just trying to keep us safe." The other says, "I feel like I can't breathe." And neither one is wrong. But they can't hear each other. Because the money is holding too much weight for both of them. The spender gets called irresponsible. People look at someone who shops when they're upset and see a lack of discipline, a weakness, a character flaw. But most of the time, spending is doing a job. It's filling a gap. It's creating a moment of choice in a life that might feel choiceless. It's producing a tiny hit of agency in a system that offers very little. Call that irresponsible if you want. But then you have to ask, what else does this person have? What other tools have they been given? If spending is the only thing that breaks the numbness, the problem isn't the spending. The problem is the numbness. The spending is just the only exit they found. The person who doesn't care about money gets called laid back. Some people seem easy about money. They don't track it. They don't worry about it. They give it away freely. People admire this. They say things like they're so chill, or they don't let money control them. But sometimes not caring about money is its own kind of regulation. It's avoidance. If money was tied to pain, to fights, to shame, to scarcity, then the easiest way to manage that pain is to refuse to engage with money at all. Don't look at the account, don't make a budget, don't think about it. That way the feelings don't activate. This looks like freedom, but it's not. It's a different kind of prison. One where the walls are invisible because the person trained themselves not to see them. The person who talks about money all the time gets called obsessed or shallow. They mention prices, they compare deals, they talk about what things cost. People find it tiresome or tasteless. But constant money talk is often a way of managing anxiety by keeping the threat visible. If I can see it, I can manage it. If I know the price of everything, nothing can surprise me. The talking isn't about status, it's about vigilance. How the pattern sustains or breaks. These patterns don't just exist in individuals, they build between people, they create systems, and those systems develop their own momentum. How it sustains. When one person in a relationship uses money to regulate their emotions, the other person starts to adjust. They learn the rules without being told. They learn which purchases cause tension. They learn when it's safe to bring up spending and when it's not. They learn to read the mood before suggesting dinner out or a new pair of shoes. Over time, the money stops belonging to both of them, emotionally, and starts belonging to whichever person has the stronger reaction to it. The person with the bigger emotional charge around money becomes the gatekeeper, not through a conversation, through atmosphere. And once that pattern is running, it's hard to interrupt. Because the person with less access doesn't just lose financial freedom, they lose the ability to self-regulate using money. They can't buy something to feel better. They can't save something to feel safe. Their emotional tool got taken. So they either find a different tool, food, silence, compliance, or they start to shut down. The person with more control doesn't see this. They see a partner who seems fine, or a partner who doesn't care about money. They don't realize that the other person stopped engaging because engaging costs too much emotionally. This is how money becomes a power structure inside a relationship without anyone naming it. At work, the same thing happens at scale. Companies use money or raises, bonuses, promotions as the primary signal of value. When the signal comes, people feel good, seen, validated, safe. When it doesn't come, people don't just feel underpaid. They feel unimportant. This is why a small raise can change someone's entire attitude, not because of the dollars, because of what the dollars mean inside their regulation system. I matter. I'm valued. I'm safe here. The money did what a conversation should have done, but didn't. And this is also why a missed raise can be devastating in a way that seems out of proportion. Because the absence doesn't just mean less money. It means something about who you are here. And if your emotional system uses money as a measure of worth, that absence hits like a judgment. Companies know this. Not always consciously, but structurally. They know that tying emotional safety to compensation keeps people anxious enough to perform. If your peace of mind depends on the next review, you don't push back. You don't slow down. You don't cause problems. The money isn't just paying you, it's managing you. How it breaks. The pattern breaks when someone starts to see what money is actually doing for them. Not what it's buying, what it's doing. This usually doesn't happen through a budget app or a financial plan. It happens through a moment of honesty. A moment where a person notices, I'm not buying this because I want it. I'm buying this because I feel terrible and I don't know what else to do. Or, I'm not saving this because I need to. I'm saving this because letting go of it makes me feel like I'm falling. Or, I'm not controlling the money because I'm responsible. I'm controlling it because without that control, I don't know who I am. Those moments are uncomfortable because they pull the curtain back on something that was working. Not working well, but working. The spending was calming the anxiety. The saving was holding the fear. The control was creating a sense of order. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. But you also can't keep doing it the same way. What comes next is harder. Because it means finding other ways to do what money was doing. Other ways to feel safe, other ways to feel worthy, other ways to feel in control. And those ways, talking, connecting, asking for help, sitting with discomfort, are slower, less reliable, less immediate than a purchase or a bank balance. But they're also not borrowed. They don't come with interest. They don't depend on a number that can change overnight. The quiet economy of feeling. Here's something most people never think about. Every household has two economies running at the same time. One is visible. It shows up in bank statements, budgets, and bills. It has numbers. It can be tracked. The other is invisible. It's the emotional economy. It runs on feelings of safety, worth, control, and belonging. It doesn't have a ledger, but it's just as real. And in most households, it's actually the one that drives the decisions. When a couple argues about whether to buy a new couch, they're rarely arguing about the couch. They're arguing about what the couch means. To one person, it means comfort, progress, a home that feels like theirs. To the other, it means risk, loss, a number going down. The couch is the same couch, but it lives in two different emotional economies. And until both people can see that, can name what the money is doing underneath the money, the argument will never resolve. Because they're not having the same argument. This is true at every scale, in families, in friendships, in workplaces, in entire cultures. When a society tells people that their worth is measured by what they earn, it's not just creating an economic system. It's creating an emotional regulation system. One where people can't feel okay unless the number is right. Where people chase money not because they're greedy, but because they've been given no other reliable way to feel stable. And when that system fails someone, when the job disappears, when the savings run out, when the income drops, what collapses isn't just their finances, it's their ability to manage their own inner world. Because the tool they were using is gone, and nobody taught them another one. What changes when you see it? When you start to see money as an emotional regulation tool, ordinary moments look different. The person at the store buying things they don't need doesn't look reckless. They look like someone trying to feel something they can't reach any other way. The person who hoards money and won't spend on anything doesn't look stingy. They look like someone whose safety depends on a number staying above a certain line. The parent who controls every dollar in the house doesn't look responsible. They look like someone who learned that control is the only reliable way to manage fear. The employee who won't negotiate their salary doesn't look passive. They look like someone for whom asking for money is the same as asking to be seen. And being seen has never felt safe. None of this means the behavior is okay. Some of it causes real harm. The person being financially controlled in a relationship is being harmed, regardless of the other person's emotional history. The person drowning in debt from emotional spending is facing real consequences, regardless of what the spending was trying to fix. But understanding what money is doing emotionally changes what solutions look like. It means the answer isn't just make a budget. It's figure out what the money is holding for you. It means the answer isn't just stop spending. It's find out what you're trying to feel when you spend. It means the conversation about money in any relationship has to include the conversation about what money means. Not in theory, in the body, in the nervous system. In the place where a certain number feels like enough and a different number feels like danger. Closing reflection. Money moves through every part of life. It pays rent, it buys food, it builds futures. But for most people, it's also doing something quieter. Something that doesn't show up in a bank statement. It's holding fear in place. It's creating a feeling of control. It's standing in for worth. It's filling a silence that nothing else fills. This isn't a flaw in people. It's a flaw in what people were given. Most people were never taught how to feel safe without a number attached. Most people were never shown how to feel worthy without earning it, literally. Most people grew up in houses where money was the thermostat for the whole family's emotional climate. When the money was fine, everyone was fine. When it wasn't, nobody was. So of course, money became the tool. It was the only one in the room. The next time you notice yourself checking your bank account for no reason, or buying something you don't need, or getting tense when someone mentions a bill, pause. Not to judge yourself, just to notice. Ask, what is the money doing right now? Not financially, emotionally. Because once you see it, you can start to separate the two. You can let money be money, and you can find something else, something steadier, something that doesn't fluctuate with the market, to do the rest. That separation is quiet. It doesn't look like much from the outside, but on the inside, it changes everything. It's the difference between a life run by a number and a life where the number is just a number. Most people don't get there, not because they can't, because nobody told them there was somewhere to get to. Now you know.